Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes. I talk movies all day, sometimes I talk about games, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now I ain't gonna get too much into spoiler territory with this video, but I am gonna say some things that you might not want to know if you haven't already seen it, so yeah. So this series is set after the Hulk brought back half the world's population from the snap and deals directly with the impact of it. The overall story is that when everyone came back, many people found themselves displaced, feeling neglected and devalued by society, and decided that they wanted to bring the world back to how it was during those 5 years. Pretty much just saying that Thanos was right. They call themselves the Flag Smashers, led by Karli Morgenthau. The thing is, Karli Morgenthau isn't a typical villain, which isn't quite accurate because these days just about all villains aren't typical villains, so for what it's worth, she's not a typical non-typical villain. The series does make it clear that she is a bad gal, but because the Flag Smashers cause is really centered around helping people, they have a lot of support from around the world, enough to help them evade government bodies and criminals. Or actually, let me just say criminals because that already includes government bodies. So how do Sam and Bucky take down the terrorists that threaten to take away our very freedoms? America! Or do Sam and Bucky take down the terrorists that threaten to take away our very freedoms? The thing I liked most about this series is that it's very grounded in reality. I mean, apart from the vibranium, the Falcon wings, Bucky getting arrested but Sam not getting shot by the police, it's a pretty believable show, and maybe even relatable to many as well. So unlike the title might suggest, there are actually 4 main characters in the series: Sam Wilson, Bucky Barnes, Karli Morgenthau, and John Walker, each going through their own story arc and development. Sam is back from the blip, working with the government, but still feels like the shield doesn't really belong to him, so he gives it up to be kept in the Smithsonian. Over the course of the series, he's unable to get a bank loan for his sister. He learns about Isaiah Bradley, the first black super soldier who was locked away, experimented on, and had his history erased so nobody would ever find out about him. And when learning that, Sam struggles with the idea of what it means to be a black man in modern day America. Bucky Barnes is dealing with, or trying to deal with, his past. But when Sam gives up the shield, because of his connection to Steve Rogers, Bucky Barnes then questions whether he himself was worth saving. And although they didn't highlight it, when Io disarms Bucky's arm, my guess is that made Bucky question that even further, since he now has the realization that the Wakandans didn't fully trust him. By the way, I heard that some people were upset about the fact that Bucky's arm had a secret disable feature. To me, that just made sense. I mean, regardless of Bucky's past, why would you give a stranger super advanced tech and not have a failsafe? And by the fact that Bucky was fighting against the Dora Milaje, clearly they made the right decision. Anyway, Bucky Barnes is mainly seeking inner peace. Karli Morgenthau is introduced as the hostage, but it's quickly made clear that she is the bad guy. But as we learn more about her story and why she does what she does, the good guy, bad guy line gets a little blurry. But whether due to circumstances or her ego, or maybe both, she becomes more and more ruthless in her pursuit of her goals. John Walker has a similar arc. He's introduced as Discount Captain America. He's got a bunch of military medals and accolades and seems like a pretty decent guy that isn't Steve Rogers. But his ego and arrogance starts to show early on. And as the season progresses, it becomes more and more apparent that he has a huge chip on his shoulder. Overall, I think the series hit its mark. I heard it was cut down by a few episodes because of the global Panasonic. I personally didn't think that showed. The pacing seemed fine to me. Maybe if you're more familiar with what they originally planned, you might notice. Or maybe if you really want people to think that you know what you're talking about, you might pretend to notice. I mean, I'm just saying. For anyone saying that the show felt rushed, at which point did they go from one scenario to another scenario and not explain how they got there? Maybe that happened, and maybe I missed it, but honestly, at no point did I feel confused as to what was going on or why things were happening, so no, I can't agree with the pacing issues comments. There was a show back in 2009 called Flashforward. It was originally supposed to run for around 4 seasons, but ended up being cut down to 1 due to the pandemic of people not watching it. Flashforward ended up having a super rushed outcome because of all the last minute changes. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was not that. Or Lost from 2004. That should have run planned for 3 or 4 seasons but got stretched out to 6 so they can milk it as much as possible. That had bad pacing and an ending that nobody liked. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was not that. And by the way, I actually liked both Flashforward and Lost. I'm pretty sure by the end of each I was the only one still watching them despite all the issues they were clearly having. But speaking of endings that nobody liked, Rotten Tomatoes critics has the last episode of The Fat was rated the lowest by far, with the critics' consensus saying it may leave fans wondering if there would be a second season. This is what I mean by people pretending to know what they're talking about. It's pretty clear they're setting up a new installment. Val, the US agent, the revelation that the power broker is, well, I ain't gonna say it here, but yeah, they left a few things open. Now, I ain't saying there will be another season because who knows, maybe there'll be another global panoramic. Well, it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Captain America 4 just got announced, so yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say they plan on following it up. Anyway, I enjoyed The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you haven't watched it already, I definitely think it's worth getting a Disney Plus subscription for, especially if you're a fan of the MCU. I think there's at least a few things that might pop up in future shows and movies. And that's what I think of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. What do you think of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.